Hi, Leroy here. This video is initially going to be to cover a bug I found on the Verselab where it doesn't understand a step scale of 30-second notes. It doesn't count it correctly. It's completely unusable. But to get there, there's other ground we have to cover. So I figured as long as I'm doing that, I'm going to cover how the Verselab handles, triggers and gates and how the step sequencer works. And we're going to go into how to count beats. So buckle in. This is probably going to be a long video. I apologize, but let's get started. So first of all, a little bit of history. Forgive me, this is a simplistic version, but one of the first step sequencers that came out was Roland's TR-808. The TR was for transistor rhythm. It was an electronic device, and it would play drum sounds. We call it the 808 today, right? So the way a trigger works is when you hit a note, when you push a button, when you tell it to play something, it just sends a quick burst of electricity and says, play this. That's it. It just comes on and goes right off. Does nothing else. It plays whatever that sample is, a bass drum or a snare or a cowbell, and then it just stops. And you'd program these things in on a step sequencer like this. No problem for drums. On the Verselab, that's a bit of an issue because we're dealing with melodic stuff as well. And triggers just won't work. So if we have just a trigger on this, I've changed the sustain on or the release on this ooze pad. If you listen, as soon as I let go of the key, it stops playing. In the synthesizer world, there's also a type of trigger called a gate. A gate stays open as long as you're pushing it down. Think of it like a red light and a green light at a stop signal. When you're not pushing the button, it's red. Nothing's coming through. As long as you hold down the button, it's green. Things are coming through. So as long as you hold down, the gate will stay open. It'll sound. So it sounds like this. Right? Here's the problem with the step sequencer on the step sequencer for things like making a melody. If we program in a simple melody, this is just do, mi, so, do, or C, E, G, C, or 1, 3, 5, 1. On the pads in a chromatic scale, it would be 1, 5, 8, 13. Da, 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 da. It sounds like this. Right? It just cuts off really fast. That's because by default on this device, and I haven't found any way to change the default, it sets the length to 0.8 of a step. Each of these is a step. They're 16th notes, so each time you put a note in like this, it's only going to be for 0.8 of a step. You can change that by going to Edit and then selecting the pad, and you see here it says length 0.80. So we can move that up. Let's move for a whole bar. We'll move it to 3.99 as far as we can to the next step, 3.99. At 4, that's the next step. That's the next beat. Right? So now it's ba dot dot dot, right? The problem with the Verselab is if you're using the step sequencer to program melodies, you'd have to change this length for every single step because all of the steps by default are 0.8 of a step. If you change the step length, if steps instead of being 16th notes are 8th notes, if you change it to 8th notes, it would be longer because it's almost an 8th note. This is almost a 16th note. If you change it to 30-second notes, it will be shorter because it will be almost a 30-second note. We're going to get into that stuff in a second. But that's why programming in melodies on a step sequencer like this is very difficult because it's not made for that. It's made to send out just these quick pulses to trigger a sample, a drum sample or something, right? Anyway, so what we can do, we can set this back to the default. We can reprogram the step. That'll be easiest. There we go. Okay. So we're going to leave that there, but one thing we can do is we can set, there's stages on synth stuff called ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, and release. We're not going to talk about those right now except for the release. We can make the release longer. The release tells it, when I let go of a pad, keep playing it for longer. So we can assign release to one of these control knobs here. If you hold down shift, and turn a knob, it won't change anything, but it'll tell you what that knob is set to. So we can see that none of these are set to what we need. We can change that by using the edit button. Now, most of the commands in the Verselab, if you hit edit, things will flash then, and then you can push something else and you can edit that thing. But there are a couple commands where you need to hold down edit and do something, and this is one of those times. So to edit what these control knobs do, you can hold down edit while you're holding it, turn the control knob. See, look, by the way, if you just hit edit and do a control knob, nothing happens, right? So we gotta hold down the control knob. We can go to release. Now watch what happens. When I turn this knob up, right? Instead of going, now if I turn it up, and by the way, if you have something that's staying a long time like this, you want it to stop, hold shift, push play. It'll stop whatever is currently playing if you do that. Anyway, so you can turn up release to make it last longer. That works pretty well on this. But again, for programming melodies, the step sequencer on here is not really made for that. Like I said, there's no way to change that by default. You can use an external sequencer, which is great, you know, a keyboard or a launch pad or something. That'll work fantastic. But for programming melodies on this device, it's a little frustrating. Okay, so next thing. What we're going to do is we are going to go into hi-hats real quick. We're going to turn this on. Now, we're going to discuss how rhythms work in the music world and how it's handled on the Verselab, because that's the next thing we need to know to figure out what this bug is. So I programmed some hi-hats, right? Just on each beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's really slow. That's 60 beats per minute. We know that there's 60 seconds in a minute. So at 60 beats per minute, that's 1 beat per second. You could just count seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You could look at a stopwatch or something. That's 1 beat per second. That's a little too slow for what we're doing because that would take forever. So we're going to change the tempo to twice that just to make it faster so we can get through it quicker. Shift and sequence, which is tempo. By the way, all of these, notice the shift has a little box around it, a little white box around it. These things also have a white box around them. The shift button, when you're holding shift and you push one of these things with a little white box under it, it's going to do the white box thing. The shift has the white box. This is the white box command, right? Utility, over here you got chord mode, velocity, quantize, sampling, octaves, right? The shift button. Anyway, so shift and the sequence button is tempo. So we're going to change that to 120. That's twice as fast. That's 2 beats per second. It sounds like we're going to move this real quick to metronome. We'll get back to that later. All right, so listen. A little faster, easier to listen to. It's fine. That's the beat. If we turn on the metronome, which we're going to do, it's going to talk. It's going to tell us the beats.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
It's a little loud.
3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Great. All right. So we got the metronome. It's telling us the beats. Let's talk about what a beat is and how a beat works. This machine, and this is a hill I will die on, is a 4/4 machine. I will tell you why. I'll explain to you how that works. You can make it do other things, but it's not designed for that. It's like when people come in and say, I wish this were more like an SP404. It's not. It's not designed to be that. You can make it do some of the things the SP404 can do, but it's not designed for that. If you try and make it do that, it's going to be difficult. It's going to cause problems. Same thing with this. You can do other things. I've done many different time signatures in here, meters, but it gets complicated. We're going to find out why, but this is a 4/4 box 100%. If you lean into that, 90% of pop and rock and EDM and hip hop and country, it's in 4/4. If you lean into that, it's going to be easier, but we'll get into that right now. So anyway, what does 4/4 mean? In music theory, 4/4, it's not a fraction. It's telling you what the music is. And we're going to assume everything is 4/4 for now to understand how this works. Imagine you have a pi, 1 pi, right? That's a whole note. That's a bar. That's a measure. If you divide it into half, you have 2 halves, right? It's still 1 pi, but it's divided into 2 pieces. If you eat both those pieces, you've eaten an entire pie. If you divide it into 4 pieces, each piece is a quarter of the pie, right? You eat all 4 pieces, it's the whole pie. If you eat 2 pieces, that's the same as half of the pie. You understand where this is going, right? Quarter notes are the same way. A quarter note is 1/4 of a measure of 4/4. The bottom note, the bottom note tells us what gets the beat. In this case, in 4/4, 4, 4. The bottom note, the 4, tells us there the quarter note is the beat. 1/4 of a measure gets a beat. The top number, 4, tells us how many beats are in one measure. So in 4/4, we have 4 beats in a measure, and a quarter note gets the beat. So these are each 1 beat right now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? You're with me so far? These are each quarter notes. If you divided a pie instead of 4 pieces into 8 pieces, you've still got one pie, but it's into 8 pieces. 2 of those little tiny eighth pieces of the pie would be a quarter of the pie. 4 of those eighth pieces would be half of the pie, etc. Right? So it's the same thing with music. You can divide notes in half and in half and in half again. So here we have quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you do 2 notes per beat, you have eighth notes. Like this. You're just dividing everything in half.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Whoops, sorry, I got that in the wrong one. So you'd count that in music like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I'm going to count it. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay? So you've still got the beats on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And notice if you turn these steps off, Roland has marked these as purple. The beats are purple. These are the beats. These things are the off beats.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? And. See what I mean? So these are eighth notes. Step sequencers by default are set up to show 16th notes. So there are 4 pieces per beat. And you count it like this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. The and is still in the same place. 1 and 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and a. You're just adding those extra pieces. So it would sound like this. This is each beat being broken into 4 pieces. Each one of these is a 16th note now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, that's how that works. So by default, that's how this machine works. It works with 16th notes and it works on 4/4. It's counting 4 beats per measure and it breaks up each beat into 4 pieces.
1, 2, 3, 4.
If we go to section mode, by default, it's 8 bars, 8 measures. We'll make that 1 for now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It just restarts right after, right? If we go into song mode and turn on record, put this on here. Now watch, up here, this first number up here, it's a 001. That's the bar you're on. The second one is how many beats there are. The Verselab always counts to 4. There must be 4 beats all the time. So watch this. It's going to just count to 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And then it stops. That's our song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Notice 1, 4. That's all the beats it had 4 beats. Let's clear that. We'll go back for a second. All right. So the next step is let's look at something. What if we wanted 3/4 time, right? That we'd have a 3 in the top, 3 beats per measure. The quarter note still gets the beat. What does that look like? Go to Edit, Measure, and we set the step length to 12. So now we've got 3 beats per measure. It sounds like this.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Now notice the counting is already off because the Verselab can only count to 4. That causes a significant problem. Let's move it to a melodic track so we can hear this a little bit better. We're going to mute the hi-hat, go to this track. Okay, this has some sustain. That makes it easier to work on this track for demonstration purposes. So we're just going to set up a simple scale. So again, this is C, E, G, C, or Do, Mi, So, Do, or 1, 3, 5, 1, or on the chromatic pads, 1, 5, 8, 13. It sounds like this.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so if we go to section mode again,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
it starts over every measure.
1, 2, 3, 4.
See, 1, 2, 3, 4. It went to 4. Whoops, it went to 4. We are done.
1,
2, 3, 4. Excellent, works as we'd expect. It is fantastic. But again, if we change this to 12 for 3 beats, 1, 2, 3, it's not going to count correctly. It's going to count to 4 no matter what.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Listen to the metronome counting to 4 again. Strange. If we go to section,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
again, it starts over. We got 1 measure. It should be 3 counts. If we go to song, record. Now watch this. This is going to count to 4 again. We've only got 3 beats, but it's going to count to 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Notice it starts over. Bum, 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 instead of bum, 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 bum. It's going bum, 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 bum. It's starting over after 3. It's adding an extra beat.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hear that?
2, 3, 4.
Goes back to the start. It cannot count in threes. One way around this, if you wanted to do 3, 4, you could make 4 bars of 3, 4. Know in your head, 3, 4 is kind of like a waltz. B da da, dee da da, dee da da, right? You could make 4 bars of 3, 4. That would end at the 3rd bar of 4, 4. So in the song mode, it would count 3 bars of 4, but you'd know it's 4 bars of 3. Again, you have to make it end at the end of a bar, at the end of 4 beats, or things aren't going to line up here. Let me show you another example. So we're gonna set this back to 16 steps, and again, each step. If you're in Measure Edit again, you can scroll down and go to Scale. This is short for step scale. It's what each step is. Right now, each step is a 16th note. So it knows there are 4 steps per beat. It knows that. If you change this to 8th notes, now there are 8 steps. Or I mean, each of these is an 8th note, so there are 2 per beat. So this over here, where it says measure, this is not always measures. If you're in 4/4 time, if you're at 1/16th note for the scale, and it's 16 steps per bar, then this is one measure. Each of these pages is one measure. If it's anything besides that, these are not measures. These are pages. So in this case, the scale is 1/8, right? So let's clear this out. So we're gonna set this up the same way we did before. Oops, sorry. Getting off track here. I'll have to go up an octave. Go up an octave again. So now, each of these 2 of these is now 1 beat. 2 of them is 1 beat. So 4 of them, so this is 2 beats. So this one page now is 2 measures. Listen.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Notice she counts to 4 twice to get there. This is 2 measures now. Internally, you could think of it maybe like 8/4, I guess, but the machine doesn't think of it that way. The machine thinks of it as 2 measures. I'll show you why. If we go to section mode, we're doing 1 measure, right? Just 1 measure. Watch what happens.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
So it plays it twice. It plays through this twice, but it still plays the entire 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, right? It still continues to ascend for 8 notes. However, if we go to song mode, and whoops, let's clear this. Clear that. There we go. All right, we've set this. It's 1 bar. In section mode, it's 1 bar. Watch the counter.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It only goes for the first 4 notes. It doesn't do all 8 notes. So if we go to section mode, we set it for 2 measures. Now, if we play it,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
notice it played 2 bars of 4 beats each. 2 bars of 4 beats each. It understands that now that the step scale is 8th notes, every beat is only 2 steps. So on a page, on one of these pages, you can fit 2 bars in 1 page. This is not a measure. This is 2 measures now. So that's one of the problems with this system. Let's talk about now compound meters to see how that changes things even further. So people have talked about these compound meters and what 1/8T does and stuff. Let's move this to 1/8T and see what that is doing. So we change this to 1/8T. 1/8T, okay? Now, if even though these purple things are still on the same, let's change this to 12 steps. I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so even though the purple notes have not changed, where the beat is has changed. Watch this. So now 1/8T means instead of there being 2 eighth notes per beat, there are 3 eighth notes per beat. So instead of being 1 and 2 and 3 and, right, it's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. I'll show you that right now. So we've got this here, and then this one, and then this one.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I'm in the wrong octave. I'm sorry, guys. Let me change that. That sounds really weird. This should be here. This should be here, and this should be here. All right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Notice the red are the beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've only got 12 steps now. We have 4 that are not used at all because it only takes 12 eighth notes to make an entire 4 beats. And if we go to section mode, go to 1 measure.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
It's counting correctly. Everything is right. If we go to song mode, clear that out, hit record. Watch.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Again, this knows it's 4 beats. Internally, it knows, yes, that is 4 beats. There are now 3 eighth notes per beat instead of 2 like there normally would be. It understands that. Everything is great, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, you can do triplets.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Or if you're adventurous, you can count up to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's divided each beat into 3 pieces. Now here's the problem. We're going to go to 30-second notes. We're going to go back to 16 and go to 30-second notes. That's the fastest step you can have in the Verselab. And just, by the way, even if you're counting an eighth note as a step, you could still record 30-second notes in if quantization is off, because each step is divided into 100 little tiny pieces. Let me show you what I mean. We'll go back to 16th notes for a second to get there. So we're going to clear all of this, right? So back to 4/4 time, back to 16th notes as the step scale and 4 beats per measure. So let's program this in. Same scale we've been using.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? Okay. Each step, so if the step scale changes, this is going to change too. Each step is a 16th note right now. And it's divided into 100 pieces. So if you go edit and hit the step, see this, see STA right here? That's the starting position of the note. At 0, it's right on the step, directly on the step, but it can go up to 100, or 99 actually, from 0 to 99, there are 100 steps, or it can go down to -50, all right? Here's what this does. So if we have another step right next to this,
1,
oops,
1, 2, 1, 1, 1.
let's move to a different instrument to make this easier to hear.
1, 1, 2, 1.
Let's move this down, turn the release down.
1, 2, 1, 2.
All right, now listen.
1,
If we put another step right here,
1, 1.
go to hi-hats, sorry. Hi-hats make it easier to hear what's going on.
1.
Darn it. Why are we not? Oh, is it muted? Yeah, okay.
1,
So, put another step on the hi-hat,
1,
right? Dee-dee, dee-dee,
1, 1.
dee-dee, 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 right? Anyway, we edit the step. If we move it up, this changes the starting position. Up to 99 means almost right when the next step starts.
1,
Can't even hear it because it's so close. Move it down to 50, or 49, I guess. This means it'll be halfway between the beat and this other step.
1, 1, 1.
Right? Let's add some more just so we can hear the difference.
1, 1. 1.
They're all even. One iana, one iana, one iana. Move it up.
1,
Bratidata, right? Bratidata. If we move it back, it comes before the beat.
1, 1.
So each step is divided into 100 pieces. You can move it up or down off of the step. If you're counting eighth notes, you have 100 steps between each eighth note. If you're doing 30-second notes, you have 100 steps between each 30-second notes. It's way more granular. So you can play with where these go by using this start position, because the start position is very granular. Also, that means when you're not in quantized mode brings whatever you're playing to the closest step. So if you're in 16th notes, right, and quantize is on, if you're playing 30-second notes, you won't hear them. You'll hear every other one because it'll pull them to the closest 16th note. That's all you'll get. However, if quantize is off, it has 100 steps. You can play 100 different notes in between each step if you want to. You could be on 8th note step scale, play 30-second notes. It would still record them exactly right. Let's see, is quantize on? Let's take a look. Quantize is on. Let's turn it off. Turn it off. Turn the quantize master off. Now watch. I'm going to play this live just so you can hear what's happening. We're going to turn on the count in so I can get an idea of what's happening. All right, watch this.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. They're off the grid because, you know, I didn't where. No, that's not what I want. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I only have 12 steps. Anyway, so it's off the grid because, you know, I don't have quantize on. I wasn't counting too hard. But we can play 16th notes too. Let's try it. Let's play 16th notes.
1,
2 again, 3 again, 4 again.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1.
Oh, record wasn't on.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? So we have 16th notes are all playing.
1.
Whoops.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? But even though we're only counting 16th notes, we can 100% play faster. Watch, I'll play as fast as I can.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 3.
Notice,
4.
that's way faster than the 16th notes that we're recording because it can start all those at a different time. If we hit the edit button and look at the steps, we can see note number 1, note number 2, number 3, number 4. I don't know why this is. Oh, there we go. See, this one starts at 16. Oh, sorry. This one starts at 16 after the note, right? Go down a little more to some more notes. There are 10 notes in this one step. If you go over, this one's at 16 too. They're off the beat. It's recording them off the beat because it can, because it's not quantizing. However, if we turn quantize on now, so listen again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's just a mess, right? If we turn quantize on, not input, input means just in your recording, we can turn master quantize to 100%. It's going to pull all of these to 16th notes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's not that crazy mess anymore because it's pulled all of those to the nearest 16th note. Anyway, the next thing we have to look at is 30-second notes as a step scale and how that works and why that doesn't work. I'm going to show you right now. So, okay, we edit this. We go to step length 16, scale. Let's go to step length 32, sorry, just because this is going to be, what this means is step length 32, we have 32 steps to work with. In here, that's 2 measures. But if we set the step scale to 30-second notes, there are actually 32 steps in one bar. So it takes 2 of these pages, 2 measures to make one measure, to make one bar. So let's check that out and see how that works. We're going to go back to this instrument track.
1.
And we're going to unmute it. There we go. Let's set this up. So it's going to be next page. Oops, sorry. I didn't set this one to the right number of pages or the scale. All right. Step length 32, scale, 132nd notes. So we got second page. So.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Uh-oh.
1, 2.
This should be here. There we go.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
Notice it's counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen to the voice.
2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's how it's counting it.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so it's counting that as one measure. It knows it's one measure, right? Because if it's counting 30-second notes, there are 32 notes in a bar. So it takes 8 notes to make one beat. This is all one beat now. This is beat 2, next page. This is beat 3. This is beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Oops, I messed that up, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, whoops, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. It knows where the beats are. But if we go to section mode, we got one measure.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Notice going back and forth between the first 2 notes only. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
If we set this to 2 measures, it works.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
But then it plays it twice.
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's playing it twice. We only want to play it once. We only have one measure of this. But if we tell it to play one measure, it stops halfway through.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right? That's not what we want.
2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
And if we leave it at one measure and go to song mode, clear this, record, and we play it back, watch what happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Again, it's only counting 4, but it's playing only the first measure, the first page, the first 16 steps. It's not obeying the 30-second notes. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4, still counting 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we go back into section mode, set it to 2, so it plays the entire thing, and it plays it twice. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In song mode, it's going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to play 2 bars now instead of 1 bar. It's going to play it twice. We can't make it play once. Impossible to make it play once. So here we go. How we set this up. We play song mode. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plays it twice. Not once, but twice. 2 bars of 4 beats each. Impossible on the device right now to use 30-second note as the step because the Verselab cannot count those as a single measure. Unless you specifically want to play the one measure you've made twice every time, you can't use 30-second notes as the step scale right now. That is all for now. This has been a long video. I apologize. I hope that helps a little bit. If you have questions, let me know. I have been reading over the manual more and more, trying to get ready for some videos I want to make that are very short and simple and self-contained. Let me know what you want to hear, and we'll work on that from there. I hope this helped. I hope you understand what I'm talking about, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, guys.